Hey girl, so I want you to do me a quick favor. We're gonna do like a little exercise, just this quick. But I want you to think of a time when you knew that you wanted something. You knew you wanted it, you deserved it, you felt like very assured. And when it was time for you to receive that thing, you didn't get what you wanted. You did not get what you thought you were going to get. And it doesn't have to be necessarily pertaining to relationships. It can be, food. You could be at a restaurant and you remember ordering a specific thing, but when you got the order, you were like, wait a second, that's not what I ordered. Or this was not what I expected. It could be a job. You know what I'm saying? Many times over, we have found ourselves sitting in places of employment where we're like, this just ain't it. Like, this is not what I expected. Y'all sold me a pipe dream and I don't like this dream anymore. The most common times we do see this, though, honestly, is in relationships where we will find ourselves thinking one thing or expecting one thing and totally getting a different experience or outcome. But in your core, you knew there was something in you that was like, I deserve better than this. I deserve better than this. So I want you just for a second, whether you need to pause the video or if you can like quickly think about it, I want you to think about that time. It could be the first time, it could be the most just impactful thing that stands out to you. But the reason that I want you to think about this memory and hold on to it for a second is because there is something really important that you missed that I want to help you locate. The thing that you missed was that little gap that you had. There was a gap of time, a period of time that you had between when you thought you wanted the thing and when the thing actually appeared, when it revealed, when it showed itself. There was a period of time there that we typically miss, especially when we are emotionally intertwined into that thing. And this is where I will pull relationships into the fold. When you found yourself in a situation where you were like, I really like him. I really think that's the one. Like, I think we could do something. We can make this work, right? And then the mask slips. Something happens. And you start looking like, well, wait a second. That's not what I ordered. That's not what I thought. That's not who you presented yourself to be. I want you to really sit and think about that small gap, that small period of time that happened between when you knew that you wanted something and when you saw what you were getting, you did not make the shift. You didn't make the change. You didn't make a decision to make sure that you got what you wanted. Instead, you just went with the flow. Instead, you started rationalizing. You started thinking to yourself like, okay, well, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? So that means that it's okay that, he called me out my name that one time. Nobody's perfect. It's okay that, the things that he said he was going to do, he's not really following through like that anymore. It's okay. That little period of time is the thing that I want you to sit in right now. Sit in it right now. And what I mean when I say sit in it right now, there is a lot of times, I'll say it this way actually. A lot of times, you guys, we will find ourselves, especially, those of us who have experienced quite a few traumatic relationships, we will find ourselves in a state of avoidance where we will try to, brush things under the rug. We'll try to act like it didn't really matter. We'll try to act like it didn't hurt, like we didn't care. We will sometimes try to mask, that pain by making it the other person's fault every time. So the reason I want you to sit in that moment, sit in that thought of, okay, when I realized that he wasn't who he said he was, when I realized that he had the same tendencies as the last guy, what did I do about it? What did I do about it? And then when I realized, okay, well, I can acknowledge what I did about it, I continued on with the relationship instead of putting it into it, instead of enforcing my boundaries, instead of recognizing that I have the ability to go and receive better. That's actually what triggered this video, because I was fumbling through, some notes. I was looking for some notes in my notebook, and I came across this old picture and I came across some old notes, and in the notes, it literally I just wrote over and over, I deserve better, I deserve better, I deserve better. And I was trying to remember, like, what was this? When was this? And I did remember 9 days before I chose to part ways for good with my now ex-husband. I remember every day I had this notebook, I was sleeping on the couch, and every day I wrote, I deserve better. And then I would just put it down. I would go about my day. And then the next day, I would add to it, I deserve better. You know, if you want to see what I'm talking about, I posted it on my socials. But I just remember, like, I deserve better. I deserve better. And apparently I did this for 9 days. I can't tell you why I did it. I don't know what was leading me necessarily to do it, because, you know, this was still a very chaotic environment. It was still a situation where it was like, I could see it coming to an end. But if I'm being honest with you, there was a part of me that was like, well, maybe, you know, maybe counseling will work. Maybe, you know, us going individually, maybe that'll work. Maybe we just need time apart again, you know. And this, y'all, is after having a series of issues. Already have gone through separation and trying to reconcile. And so I knew who the person was. Both of our masks had already slipped. But there was something still sitting in me that was like, I know I deserve better than what I'm getting. So fast forward, the 9th day, it was like, it was a wrap, right? We were done. We knew we were done. You know, I got the U-Haul, packing up me and my son's stuff, like the whole 9 was happening, right? And I remember as I was driving that U-Haul, and I had to make 2 trips because I couldn't afford like a regular U-Haul. It was, times were bad, y'all. Times were bad then. But anyway, I couldn't necessarily afford, you know, like the big U-Haul and just take all of our stuff. And so I just remember I was in that U-Haul though, and I kept saying like, I have better. Like, I have better. And at some point, I can't tell you when, but at some point I wrote at the end of that, you know, little journal session, I have better, right? Well, fast forward 6 months later, present time, I find this, you know, piece of paper. I find this note where I'm saying on here over and over, I have better, or I deserve better, I deserve better. And then I see in totally different ink at a totally different point in time where I wrote, I have better. Had I known the things that I know now that I want to share with you now, had I known that I deserve better and I knew how to go and get better, had I known how to use that little gap of time between knowing what you want and then accepting what is presented to me, had I known what to do in that space and time, I would have experienced my better a long time ago. So I want you to use your own experience. When was that period of time where you were like, this is not what I wanted. This is not what I said I wanted, what I said I needed. It's not it. And then I want you to think about, if you could go back in time, what would you do different? What would you say differently? How would you shift it to ensure that you got what you wanted? And then that is what you do moving forward. That's how you ensure that you continue to get the things that you deserve and the things that you desire, honestly. That's how you can make sure of it, is by always allowing yourself to actually utilize the time that sits. And it's a very short window, I promise you. Like, it isn't even, unless you are regulated in your nervous system and you are at a space where you know how to relax, you know how to just calm things down. So I'll give you a real like example of this. Let's say you're on a date with someone and y'all been dating for a little while. You like him, he's handsome, he is well resourced, he's all the things, right? And then something happens in date number 6 and you're like, wait a second, that's a red flag, right? Because you know what your red flags are. So let's say that that's the environment. And then let's say that, you know, at the end of the date, hey, I want to go out again. Now, you have time. You had time in that moment to determine, is this something that I want to deal with? Is this something that I said that I desired for myself? Is this something that I feel is going to add value to my life? Is it going to keep me uplifted, keep me in the state of goddess consciousness? Is it going to bring me or keep me there? Is it going to elevate? Or is this going to cause disruption? Is it going to cause chaos? Like, that's how intricate and detailed you need to be internally. And like I said, this is especially for my ladies who have been through some things in their relationships. And many of us have. So letting this person know, let me check my schedule. Let me find out what's going on in my week. I'll let you know. You know, that's you giving yourself time. That's you giving yourself that space to say, well, let me get regulated. Let me make sure that I am making a good decision about dating this person. Let me make sure that I looked at that red flag correctly. I looked at it with logical eyes, but also intuitive eyes. Let me make sure that this person, at one of his slips, the mask slipped, let me make sure that he still aligns with where I'm going. That he will not find himself to be, you know, a burden to my growth, a burden to, you know, a burden to my, you know, healing, to my wellness. to, again, my nervous system. Your nervous system regulation, and I said this in a previous video, that is going to be honestly one of the most important things that you will need to learn how to navigate, learn how to soothe, learn how to heal as you transfer out of a cycle of dealing with abusive relationships. When I decided to make that my priority, that was when a lot of these things that I've just learned, experienced, dating, all of that, it really made it a lot easier. My boundaries became stronger. It became almost like second nature to protect me, but still remain very open and receptive to friends, to men, to advice, you know what I mean, to a new business venture, like all the things. It all started because I made my regulation of my nervous system the focus. And one way that you can start doing this as just kind of a daily practical routine for yourself is to really allow yourself a lot more time when you start recognizing that the things that you want out of life, especially when it comes down to dealing with, men and harmonizing, with the sacred masculine energy. When you've realized that you are in an environment that is not what you want, don't feel obligated to say yes. Don't feel obligated to say, well, you know what, let me figure out how to compromise. Let me figure out how to rationalize. One thing that you will learn as a goddess embodied woman is that compromising is really not something that we do. If I'm being honest, compromising is not really something that we do. And the reason for it, it's not because we are just this, super arrogant, narcissistic, entitled. No, none of that. It's because we are so meticulous when it comes down to the things that we want out of life that we don't even put ourselves in position to where we would get anything different. But I had to learn how to do this. I was not always like this. I was truly accepting any kind of behavior. I was accepting any kind of man to show up. And if you don't know what it is that you deserve, don't worry. I have a lot of videos coming up that's going to help you with that. But whether you know what it is that you deserve or not, I want you to think about that one time, that really impactful time that stung, that you can sit back and think and you're like, dang, that's not at all what I wanted. I know I took the bare minimum. I knew I accepted less. And don't beat yourself up when you do this exercise. Just merely look at this as a case study of your own life experience. Because we all have these life experiences where we can look back on something and learn from yourself. Ask yourself those questions. What could I have done differently? Okay, let me make a note of that. That's how I move differently moving forward. That's how I train myself to move forward. And then sometimes there's delay, right? We have to, be mindful of that. That sometimes there's a delay. And what that can look like is the delay of, I know that this isn't a healthy relationship for me, but I still have to be here because I'm not in a position to leave. Right? That's why I love any content that is talking about women being able to be self-sufficient and do for themselves. That is one of the, I'm going to say, biggest regrets that I know I had, especially in my 20s, because that's where I dealt with a lot of this stuff. But that's one of the things that I love. I love that there's so much content now that talks about, openly women getting their own, women being able to keep, maintain, grow their own, and still be in partnership. So if you want that to be you, if you don't feel like you're there yet, stick with me first of all, because I got you. But I really want you to start getting very clear about the things that you did that were not at your highest goddess state. You can now take that information and utilize it to your benefit to help you. You can utilize it to make better decisions for yourself. You can utilize it to heal yourself. Because if healing is not your focus right now, okay, if you follow the advice of just go get up under another one, right? I've heard that advice before. I've heard people say that they've heard that advice before. What tends to happen because we did not do the work is we end up just finding duplicates of the same type of energy, the same type of people that we were up under previously. And that's not what we want. That's not the type of life. Like, to our, awareness, this is the one life that we get. So this is the one life that you get in your body, with your name, with your looks, with your intelligence, with your beauty, with everything that you have to offer. And all you have to do is heal. All you have to do is regulate. All you have to do is take accountability for your own life. Take responsibility for what you want out of life. Align yourself to go and get that, to receive that. That's really all that you have to do in order to experience the type of life, the type of relationship that you desire. So in closing, I'm going to say this. One thing that really resonated with me when I looked at my little notebook and I saw the, I deserve better, I have better, was when I went and I looked at it in present tense. I remember taking that same like really big, deep breath of exhale, the same way that I did it in that U-Haul. And I looked around and I was like, I have better. I have better. Like, it's one of those things when you are saying that you have better because that's what you want, versus when you have better because that's actually what you're experiencing. And yes, it takes time. It does take some time, but that time does not go to waste, because when you get to your own place of I have better, you're going to be able to look back on your experiences. You're going to be able to look back on that old relationship. You're going to be able to look back at the things that you were willing to accept before that you would not allow near you with a 10-foot pole moving forward. And that's how you'll know that all of the time, the healing, the crying, the journaling, the breath work, the everything, that you are going to do, the internal work that you've done to enhance and increase your own self-love, understanding what your value is, all of these things that I'm going to help you do, you're going to fast forward and you're going to be like, dang, I did that. And I have better. So if you want to share what that thing was, what that space, what that time frame was, where it was like, I said I wanted this, but I end up with this, like, please feel free to share that in the comments. Let's chit chat about it. And until next time, be well.